Millionaire, single dad, tests a newly hired nanny. When he sees this scene, he cries. This story may make you think hard. Money can buy a lot of things, but there are things it will never buy, and one of them is character. So if you think you can do anything just because you've got extra cash sitting in the bank, I'm sorry to tell you, you're mistaken. Hello, it's Mr. Hope again. Come along with me to the very end, and I promise you will be delighted, thrilled, and inspired by this amazing story. Enjoy. Caleb Monroe had gone through many nannies since the day his wife walked out. She left their 2 young daughters, one 6, the other 8, and ran off with a long-haul trucker. Caleb had always lived surrounded by money. Born with a silver spoon, he never knew poverty, but he also never knew love. He wasn't loved by his own family, much less by his ex-wife. In his life, everything always revolved around money, yet his girls never received the genuine care he wished they had. The last nannies he'd hired only cared about payday at the end of the month, and he never saw in them the tenderness he hoped for his daughters, until he hired one more nanny, and she changed everything. On an ordinary day, Caleb came home from a meeting and, when he walked in, witnessed a scene that made him cry. His 2 daughters were smiling, laughing at the table, eating the meal they loved most, a simple plate of pasta, cooked with care by the new nanny. When Caleb Monroe, a 42-year-old developer and owner of a construction firm that moved millions of dollars a year in New York City, returned home on a rainy Tuesday in June, he didn't expect to find his 2 little girls giggling at the kitchen table over a simple pasta dinner that cost less than $10 to make, but was worth more than all his millions combined. How did a man who'd always had everything discover he was living in absolute emotional poverty through the eyes of a 38-year-old nanny who earned just $2,500 a month, yet held the greatest treasure money could never buy? This is the story of Caleb Monroe, the millionaire of Greenwich, who discovered that being truly rich has nothing to do with what's in your bank account and everything to do with what's in your heart, thanks to a woman who had lost everything but never lost her capacity to love, proving that sometimes the simplest people carry humanity's greatest treasures. In just 6 months, Caleb's life changed completely. From a cold man who barely knew his own daughters, he became the present father they had always needed. His company kept thriving, but now he knew that true success waited for him every day at 6 p.m., when he opened the front door and heard the joyful cry, "Daddy's home!" from 2 little girls who finally had a real father, not just a distant provider. Caleb's mansion in Greenwich, with its sprawling grounds, an Olympic-sized pool, a private tennis court, an 8-car garage, and landscaping that cost thousands a month to maintain, had never felt so empty as it did that Monday morning in late May. He was in his 12th floor penthouse office, reviewing financial reports showing an 18% growth in the first quarter, when his phone rang. It was Valerie, the nanny who cared for Hannah, age 6, and Becca, age 8, his 2 daughters. "Mr. Monroe, I need to speak to you urgently," Valerie said, her voice tight. "I can't work here anymore. My mom had a stroke down in Tampa, and I need to go take care of her. I'm so sorry, but I'm leaving tomorrow." Caleb exhaled heavily. Valerie was the 7th nanny in 2 years, ever since Melissa, his ex-wife, had run off with a trucker named Joshua, leaving their little girls behind. He couldn't keep anyone for long. Some quit because the girls were too tearful and needy. Others couldn't handle the pressure of caring for children traumatized by their mother's abandonment. And some, he was sure, left because they realized that behind all that wealth was a completely shattered family. "All right, Valerie, I understand. Please get your things in order. I'll deposit your full salary and a bonus," Caleb said, already calculating how to solve yet another problem. "And about the girls. Can you stay at least until I find someone else?" "Sir, with all due respect, I can't. My mother is in the ICU. I'm catching the 3 p.m. flight today. I've organized everything and left written instructions for the next person. Your girls are angels. The problem isn't them. Caleb knew exactly where the problem was. The problem was him. He was an absent father who tried to compensate for his emotional absence with expensive gifts and a life of luxury his kids didn't even know how to value. Hannah still cried every night for the mother who'd left. Becca, the older one, had turned far too serious for her age, taking on responsibilities she shouldn't have. And he, Caleb Monroe, the man who had built a business empire from nothing, had no idea how to build a real relationship with his own daughters. After hanging up, Caleb stood at the panoramic window of his office, watching the rush of Fifth Avenue far below. He had grown up in that concrete, cutthroat world, the son of Oswald Monroe, a businessman even colder and more calculating than he was. Caleb learned young that feelings were weakness, that crying was for losers, that money solved everything. His father never hugged him, never said, "I love you," never attended a school play. The only language Oswald knew was the language of account balances, signed contracts, acquired properties, and Caleb had become exactly like him. When he married Melissa, he thought he'd finally have a real family. She was beautiful, came from a good family, held a college degree, and seemed perfect for a successful man. But what Caleb didn't realize was that he had chosen a woman as emotionally hollow as he was. Melissa liked the money, the international trips, the designer clothes, the imported cars. But when the girls were born and she realized that being a mother demanded far more than dressing children in expensive outfits, she began to pull away. The marriage crumbled slowly. Caleb worked 16 hours a day, always traveling, always buried in deals. Melissa spent money on spas, salons, cosmetic treatments, anything that made her feel important. The girls stayed with nannies, housekeepers, drivers. They were raised by staff while their parents lived in their separate worlds of responsibilities and frivolities. Then, 2 years ago, Caleb came home to find only a note on the dining table. "I can't take this life anymore. The girls are with Valerie. Don't try to find me." Melissa later, he learned, through the private investigator he hired, that she'd run off with Joshua Reed, a 42-year-old trucker she'd met at an E95 service plaza. They were living together in Austin, where Joshua owned a small freight company. Caleb never told his daughters the truth. He said, "Mommy traveled for work and will be back when she can." But kids aren't foolish. They knew something was wrong. Hannah, only 4 at the time, asked every day when Mommy was coming back. Becca, just 6 then, carried a deep sadness in her eyes, as if she knew Mom would never return. Now, 2 years later, they were 8 and 6, and Caleb still didn't know how to be a dad. He gave them everything material they asked for, imported dolls that cost $500 each, brand-name clothes, a magazine-worthy bedroom with a castle-shaped bed, and a walk-in closet full of dresses they never wore. Private lessons in English and French, piano, ballet, tennis, vacations at luxury resorts where they spent all day with kids' club counselors while he took business calls. But what they really wanted, he didn't know how to give. They wanted a father who knew their favorite foods, who knew their favorite games, who soothed them when nightmares came, who laughed with them during cartoons. They wanted a dad who was present, not just physically, but emotionally. And that, Caleb simply didn't know how to do. That afternoon, after Valerie left for the airport, Caleb cancelled every meeting and went home early. He found the girls in their room, playing quietly, too quietly for 2 healthy kids. Hannah sat in a corner clutching an old, worn-out doll that had been her mother's. Becca was drawing, and when Caleb stepped closer to see the picture, his heart clenched. It was a family drawing, a very tiny dad in the corner of the page, two girls in the middle, and an empty space where Mum should have been. "Hey, princesses," Caleb said, trying to sound cheerful. "Valerie had to travel because her grandma got sick, but Daddy's going to find a great new nanny to take care of you." Hannah dropped the doll and ran to hug his legs. "Daddy, I don't want a new nanny. I want you to stay with us, my little girl. Daddy has to work to make money and buy you the things you like." "I don't want the things, Daddy. I want you," Hannah said, eyes brimming. Becca walked over and took his hand. "Daddy, can we eat dinner together tonight? No phone, no computer, just us?" Caleb felt a squeeze in his chest he'd never felt before. His daughters weren't asking for expensive toys or designer clothes. They were asking for him. And he, a man who handled million-dollar deals daily, didn't know how to solve the simplest problem in the world: be a real father. "Of course, princesses. Let's have dinner together. What do you want to eat?" "Pasta with sauce," Hannah squealed, clapping. "With grated cheese," Becca chimed in. Caleb laughed. His girls wanted pasta with sauce, something that cost maybe $20 to make, while he was used to taking them to sushi restaurants, where a meal cost $300 a person. He went down to the kitchen, sent Teresa the cook home early, and tried to make pasta himself. It was a disaster. He burned the sauce, overcooked the noodles, and forgot the salt. But the girls ate smiling, happy just to sit with their dad, even if the food was awful. Over dinner, Caleb realized he knew almost nothing about his own daughters. He didn't know that Hannah loved drawing butterflies. He didn't know that Becca was afraid of the dark, but kept it secret so she wouldn't seem like a baby. He didn't know they had invented a secret language only they understood. He didn't know they dreamed of getting a puppy, loved pepperoni pizza, that Hannah's favorite color was purple and Becca's was green. How could a father not know his own children? He asked himself that all night as he listened to Hannah quietly sobbing in the next room. She always cried the first night after a nanny left. Every goodbye amplified the original wound of being abandoned by her mother. Caleb went to her room and found her curled up, clutching the old doll. "Hannah, why are you crying?" "I'm scared you'll go away too, Daddy." The words hit Caleb like a punch to the gut. His 6-year-old feared he'd abandon her as well. And the worst part was that, in a way, he already had, emotionally. He lived in the same house, slept under the same roof. But he was always absent, always distant, always too busy to be a real dad. "Daddy will never leave, Princess." "Promise?" "I promise." He sat on the edge of her bed until she fell asleep. Then he went to Becca's room and found her awake, pretending to sleep, something she always did when she was worried. "B, I know you're awake." Becca opened her eyes slowly. "Daddy, will you get a nice nanny this time?" "I'll try, sweetheart." "You know what would be nice, Daddy? A nanny who really likes us, not one who's always on her phone or watching TV. One who plays with us, who can cook yummy food, who tells bedtime stories." "And how will I know if she's like that?" Becca thought for a moment. "Oh, I know. You could pretend to leave but stay hidden and watch. Then you'll see if she's nice or if she's like the others." Caleb smiled. His 8-year-old had just given him the best hiring strategy he'd ever heard. In the business world, it was called behavioral due diligence, watching people when they don't know they're being watched to understand their true character. The next day, Caleb posted a job ad on 3 employment sites and in 2 big circulation newspapers. The salary was high, $4,000 a month, plus transit, meal stipend, full health coverage, and a double holiday bonus. Requirements: proven experience with children, verifiable references, availability Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and flexibility to stay overnight if the employer traveled. Within 2 days, Caleb received 47 resumes. he selected 12 candidates for in-person interviews the following week. During that week, he worked from home to care for the girls. It was eye-opening. He discovered that Hannah woke up at 6:30 every morning, humming a song she'd made up. He discovered Becca liked her coffee and milk warm, not hot. He discovered the girls hid cookies under the bed to snack on during the night. More importantly, he discovered his daughters were incredible, smart, loving, funny. Hannah had a wild imagination and invented stories about princesses who rescued dragons instead of being rescued. Becca was observant and asked deep questions like, "Daddy, why do some people have a lot of money and others have nothing?" Or, "If God loves everyone, why did he let Mommy leave?" The interviews began the following Monday. The first candidate, Joanne, 52, arrived on the dot at 9 a.m. She had 20 years' experience with wealthy families, and her references were impeccable. In the interview, she was professional, articulate, and knowledgeable about child development and routines. Caleb was impressed. "Joanne, we'd like to do a practical test. Would you stay with the girls for 2 hours while I step out for a meeting? Are you willing?" "Of course, Mr. Monroe." "Leave them with me." Caleb introduced Hannah and Becca. The girls were polite but shy, as they always were with strangers. Caleb picked up his car keys and announced he'd be back at 11:30, but instead of leaving, he went to his second-floor office and watched through the security cameras installed in every room. For the first 15 minutes, Joanne was attentive. She asked if the girls wanted to play, if they were thirsty, if they needed anything. But once she was sure Caleb had truly left, she changed completely, grabbed her phone and started chatting with a friend, ignoring Hannah and Becca. "Girl, you wouldn't believe this house. It's a palace. Everything top of the line. The guy is filthy rich. If I nail this job, it'll be perfect. $4,000 a month to babysit 2 spoiled little rich kids," Joanne said on the phone while Hannah tried to show her a drawing. Caleb felt his blood boil. Hannah tugged at Joanne's skirt, trying to get her attention, but the woman ignored her completely. Becca noticed something was wrong and led her sister to play in their room. Joanne stayed on the phone for over an hour, talking about the house, the salary, how easy the job would be because rich kids sit around watching TV and playing video games all day. When Caleb came down at 11:30, Joanne quickly hung up and turned back into the attentive nanny from the interview. "How was your meeting, Mr. Monroe?" "The girls behaved perfectly. Such angels." "Good to hear, Joanne. Thank you for the test. I'll review all candidates and get back to you by Friday." As soon as Joanne left, Caleb spoke with his daughters. "So, what did you think of Joanne?" "She didn't like our drawings," Hannah said sadly. "And she stayed on the phone forever, talking loud," Becca added. The second candidate, Rosanna, 38, took the same test the next day. It was even worse. She spent 2 hours watching TV, ate half the cookies in the pantry, and didn't even notice when Hannah hurt herself, trying to reach a toy on top of the wardrobe. Becca tended to her sister, cleaned the scrape, and put on a bandage. The third, fourth, and fifth candidates were variations on the same theme. Women who seemed perfect during the formal interview, but revealed their true selves when they thought no one was watching. One even scolded Hannah for spilling juice, yelling at a 6-year-old as if she were an adult. Caleb was starting to lose hope when it was the sixth candidate's turn. Tony Carter, 38, originally from Lubbock, Texas. Her resume wasn't the most impressive. She'd worked as a nanny for only 2 families, and while her references were positive, they weren't from wealthy or influential people. Tony had earned just $2,000 at her last job, caring for 3 children in a middle-class family in Jersey City. When Tony rang the bell that Thursday morning, Caleb could hardly believe what he saw. She wore simple jeans, a white cotton blouse that probably cost $20, plain black faux leather shoes, that had seen better days and carried a small hand-stitched fabric tote. Her brown hair was pulled into a no-nonsense bun, no expensive products for shine or volume. She wore no makeup, just a subtle rosy lip balm. But what struck Caleb most were her eyes, tired eyes that had seen a lot of suffering, still shining with genuine kindness, the kind of look you see in people who've faced great hardship but never lost the ability to care. "Good morning, Mr. Monroe. I'm Tony Carter. I'm here for the nanny interview." Her voice was gentle, with a soft Texas lilt she didn't try to hide. There was a sincerity in her tone that contrasted sharply with the artificial polish of the other candidates. "Good morning, Tony. Please come in. Let's talk in the living room." As they walked through the house, Caleb noticed Tony looking around with respectful admiration, but without the greed he'd seen in other candidates' eyes. She wasn't calculating the value of objects or imagining how great it would be to live there. She simply appreciated the beauty of the space. "Wow, what a beautiful home. The kids must love playing in that yard," Tony said, glancing out to the backyard where a custom playground had cost $50,000. "They do. Have a seat, please. Let's talk a bit about you." Tony perched on the edge of the Italian leather sofa, clearly uncomfortable with so much luxury around her. Her hands trembled a little, but she kept her posture upright and her gaze steady. "Tony, tell me a little about your experience with children." "Well, Mr. Monroe, I've been a nanny for 15 years. I started when I was 23, right after some very hard things happened in my life. I first cared for Mrs. Martin's kids in Jersey City, 3 children, little Peter, who was 4 when I started, Camila, 6, and baby Raphael, just 2. Tony's voice warmed as she spoke of the kids. Caleb could tell she wasn't reciting a memorized resume. She was remembering people who had truly been part of her life. "I stayed 8 years, until the youngest turned 10, and Mrs. Martin decided they were big enough not to need a nanny. Saying goodbye was really hard. They were like my own. After that, I worked for Mrs. Sanders, also in Jersey City. She had 5-year-old twins, Ben and Brooke. I stayed there 7 years, until last month. They're 12 now, and Mrs. Sanders said they don't need a nanny anymore, just someone to pick them up from school sometimes." "Why did you leave Jersey City to look for work in New York?" Tony lowered her eyes for a moment, deciding how much to reveal. "Mr. Monroe, may I be frank?" "Please, I prefer honesty. I've lived in Jersey City 15 years, but I'm actually from Lubbock, Texas. I came east when I was 23. "Why?" "Because I needed to start over far from there. Some very painful things happened, and here I managed to build a new life." Caleb was curious but didn't press. "And why New York now? Rent in Jersey City has gotten too high. I made $2,000 and paid $800 for a tiny room. There wasn't much left for the rest of life. I thought if I could find a job in the city with a better salary, I could rent a decent place and maybe even take night classes. I've always dreamed of studying education." There was something in Tony's honesty that moved Caleb. She wasn't trying to impress with invented stories or inflated qualifications. She was simply herself, a humble woman fighting for a dignified life. "Tony, tell me something specific. How do you handle kids going through tough times?" Tony's eyes filled with understanding. "You're asking because your little girls lost their mom, aren't you?" Caleb was surprised by her perception. "Actually, their mother didn't die. She left." "Oh my, I'm so sorry, Mr. Monroe. That must have been very hard for the children, and for you too. How would you handle that?" Tony thought carefully. "Sir, I can't replace their mother. No one can, but what I can do is give them the affection they need to feel safe and loved while they process that pain. Children need routine, tenderness, and someone who's truly present. What do you mean by truly present? It's like this. It's no use being in the same room if you're not paying attention. Kids know when you're there in body, but your mind's somewhere else. They need to feel they matter, that someone cares what they feel, think, and dream. Caleb was impressed. Tony had just described exactly what he was doing wrong as a father, always physically present, emotionally absent. And how do you show that care day to day? It's simple things. Asking how school went and really listening to the answer, knowing a child's favorite food and making it when she's sad, telling a bedtime story, playing together, not just letting her play alone, crying with her when she's hurting and laughing with her when she's happy. Caleb felt that squeeze in his chest again. When had he last truly played with his daughters? He couldn't remember. Tony, do you have children? The question made Tony's face close for an instant. She drew a deep breath before answering, and Caleb sensed a deep wound. I had a son, Mr. Monroe, a long time ago. But he isn't with me anymore. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's all right. It's part of my story. If you're going to hire me, it's only fair you know. I had a baby when I was 22, little Pedro Henry. He was the most beautiful thing in this world. Her voice trembled, but she went on. His father left when he learned I was pregnant, said he wasn't ready to be a dad. I raised my boy alone for almost 2 years. I worked as a hospital cleaner back in Lubbock. I made very little, but we were happy. Caleb saw her fighting tears. You don't have to continue if you don't want to. No, I need to. It matters. When Pedro was 1 year and 8 months, he got very sick, a severe infection. I took him to the hospital where I worked, but the doctor said he needed an expensive treatment at a private facility. I didn't have the money or insurance. I tried everything, sold what I had, begged everyone I knew. But it was too late. My baby died in my arms because I didn't have the money to save him. Caleb felt like someone had punched him. He'd complained all his life about an emotionally absent father, but his girls had a father, a home, food, healthcare, everything money could buy. Tony had lost her child for lack of money, and still here she was, ready to love another man's children. Tony, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, sir. After my boy died, I couldn't stay in Lubbock. Everything reminded me of him. That's when I came east and became a nanny. At first it was very hard to care for other people's children, but then I understood that caring for kids was how I honor my son's memory. Every child I care for receives the love I can't give him anymore. Caleb was deeply moved. He realized Tony wasn't just a candidate. She was a woman who had turned her greatest tragedy into her greatest strength. She'd lost her son, but dedicated her life to caring for other people's children with the love she could no longer give her own. Tony, I'd like you to meet my girls. Hannah is 6, Becca is 8. They're special kids going through a tough time. Of course, Mr. Monroe. I'd love to meet them. Caleb called the girls, who came scampering down the stairs. When they saw Tony, they paused at the doorway, shy, as always, with strangers. Girls, this is Tony. She came to meet you. Tony crouched to their height, something none of the other candidates had done. Hi, girls. You have beautiful names, Hannah and Becca. How old are you? I'm 6, Hannah whispered. I'm 8, said Becca. 6 and 8, such special ages. When I was 6, Hannah, I loved playing with dolls and drawing flowers. And at 8, like you, Becca, I loved reading stories and helping my dad in the kitchen. Do you like those things too? Their eyes began to shine. I like drawing butterflies, Hannah exclaimed. And I like to read, Becca said. What a wonderful coincidence. I love butterflies and stories too. Would you show me some drawings? Hannah ran upstairs and returned with a sketchbook full of pictures. Tony sat on the floor, still in her best clothes, and began turning pages with genuine interest. "Wow, Hannah, such lovely butterflies. Look at the colors you chose, and this one with purple wings is my favorite. Do you know butterflies have special meanings?" "They do?" "They do. Butterflies represent transformation. They're born as little caterpillars, then become cocoons, and only then turn into beautiful butterflies. It's like they teach us that sometimes we have to go through hard changes to become stronger and more beautiful." Caleb watched, amazed. In 5 minutes, Tony had opened his girls up in a way he hadn't seen in months. They were smiling, talking excitedly, showing their toys and drawings to a complete stranger, as if she were a dear friend. "And you, Becca, what kind of stories do you like?" "I like stories about brave princesses." "Oh, brave princesses are the best. Much better than the ones who just wait to be rescued, right? Do you know the story of Harriet Tubman, a real American hero who helped people escape to freedom?" "No." "Then I'll tell you a true story about a very brave woman." And Tony began to tell the story of the Underground Railroad, rich in detail, in language a child could grasp, making it exciting without being frightening. Caleb was impressed not only with her knowledge, but with how she adapted the narrative to an 8-year-old's understanding. During the story, Hannah scooted closer and finally sat beside Tony on the floor. When the tale ended, she asked softly, "Auntie Tony, do you like kids?" "I love kids, sweetheart. I love them very much. And you won't go away if we cry sometimes." Caleb's heart broke at the question. How many nannies had left because they couldn't handle traumatized children? Tony took Hannah's small hands in hers. "My love, everybody cries sometimes. I cry too. Crying isn't ugly and it isn't wrong. When someone we love cries, we stay close, give a hug, and wait for the sadness to pass. I would never leave just because you cried. Promise. I promise." Becca, who had hung back, came closer. "Auntie Tony, can you make yummy food?" "I sure can." "What do you like best?" "Pasta," they both shouted. Tony laughed. "Pasta is one of my specialties. Tomato basil pasta, extra cheesy pasta, chicken pasta, bolognese. Would you like me to make a special pasta for you one day?" "We would." Caleb decided it was time for the practical test. "Girls, how about if Tony plays with you while Daddy steps out for a short meeting? Would that be okay?" "Yes," they said in unison. "Tony, would you stay with them for 2 hours?" "Of course, Mr. Monroe. You can go with peace of mind." Caleb grabbed his keys, announced he'd be back at 2, then once again headed to the second-floor office and turned on the cameras. What he saw this time was completely different. As soon as he left, Tony turned to the girls with a genuine smile. "So, what do you like to do for fun?" "We like to play house," said Hannah. "And read stories," Becca added. "How about we do both? We can play house, and I'll tell stories too. Where do you play?" They led her to the playroom, a gigantic room bursting with expensive toys they rarely used. Caleb watched as Tony explored the toys with genuine interest, offering positive comments. "You have so many cool toys, but you know what? Sometimes the most fun games are the ones we invent with simple things. Want to try a game I made up when I was little?" "Yes." Tony looked around and spotted some floor cushions. "Let's build a blanket fort with these cushions, and inside I'll tell you the most amazing story you've ever heard." The girls were thrilled. Together they built a makeshift fort with cushions, chairs, and a bedsheet Tony asked to borrow. Inside the fort, the three sat in a circle while Tony told the story of a princess who lived in a magical forest, but not just any story, an interactive one where Hannah and Becca got to choose what the princess did at every challenge. The princess reached a fork in the road. One path was golden and shiny, The other was simple and full of wildflowers. Which way should she go? "The flowers!" Hannah shouted. "The golden one," said Becca. "Oh, what a dilemma. Let's see." The princess decided to ask her heart, and her heart said that sometimes the simplest things are the most beautiful. So she took the path of wildflowers. And do you know what happened next? The story went on for more than an hour, the girls completely absorbed, laughing, asking questions, offering ideas. Caleb had never seen his daughters so animated and engaged, truly having fun, not being passively entertained by TV or video games. After the story, Tony suggested a snack. "Would you help me? I love cooking with kids. It's so much more fun." They went to the kitchen, where Tony checked the pantry and fridge. "You've got lots of good stuff in here. How about special sandwiches and fresh juice?" "Okay." Caleb watched, fascinated, as Tony taught them to make grilled cheese and turkey sandwiches, slicing tomatoes into fun shapes and making smiley faces with the ingredients. She showed them how to squeeze fresh orange juice, letting each girl help. You know, girls, food made with care always tastes better. When we cook with love, thinking about making something special for the people we like, the flavor changes. "Why?" Becca asked. "Because love is a secret ingredient that makes everything taste better." My grandma used to tell me that when I was little. She made the best cornbread in the world. When I asked for her secret, she'd say, "Sweetheart, the secret is I put a whole lot of love in the batter." While they ate the snack they'd made together, the girls told Tony about their lives, their routines, their favorite games. She listened attentively, asked thoughtful questions, and showed genuine interest in every detail they shared. "Auntie Tony," Hannah blurted out, "you're different from the other nannies." "How so, my angel?" "The other nannies stayed on the phone or watched TV. You actually play with us." Tony smiled tenderly. "That's because I like you very much. And when we like someone, we stay close, play together, and talk together. That's how we show we care." "Does that mean Mommy didn't like us?" Becca asked, her voice heavy with sadness. Caleb's heart clenched. His 8-year-old had made a painful but understandable connection. If people who love you stay and play, then the mom who left must not have loved them. Tony chose her words with care. "My love, sometimes adults do things that hurt the people they love, not because they don't love them, but because they're confused or scared or going through hard problems. None of that is your fault. You are wonderful girls, smart and kind. Anyone would be lucky to have you close." "Would you be happy to have us?" Hannah asked. "I'm already happy just being here with you today. Do you know you both have a special light, a light that makes people around you feel good?" Time flew. 15 minutes before Caleb was due back, Tony suggested tidying up together. "How about we leave everything neat for when Daddy gets home? He'll be so happy to see how responsible and caring you are." They picked up the fort, washed the snack dishes, and fluffed the cushions, but Tony turned each task into a game. Toy cleanup became a race, washing dishes became a song, rearranging cushions became a dance. At exactly 2 o'clock, Caleb came downstairs to find his daughters radiant, cuddled up with Tony on the living room sofa while she told a short story about 2 little birds who were best friends. "Hi, Daddy," the girls shouted, running to hug him. "Auntie Tony is so cool. She built a fort and taught us to make smiley-face sandwiches." "Really? That's awesome," Caleb said, feigning surprise. "And did you behave?" "We behaved super well. Auntie Tony says we have a special light." Caleb looked at Tony, who was smiling warmly at the girls. "Tony, how did it go?" "It was wonderful, Mr. Monroe. Your daughters are truly special, bright, creative, loving. It was a joy to spend these hours with them." There was no falseness in her voice. She really had enjoyed being with the girls, and they had clearly loved being with her. "Girls, why don't you go play a bit while I talk with Tony?" They scampered off, and Caleb sat beside Tony on the sofa. "Tony, I need to be honest. I didn't leave the house. I was watching on the cameras." Tony looked surprised but not offended. "I see. You wanted to know how I behave when no one's looking." "Exactly. And I was impressed. You were genuine from start to finish. You played for real, you listened, you made a snack with them. You treated my daughters as if they were your own." Tony's eyes filled. "Mr. Monroe, they are special to me already. I know I just met them, but I feel a great affection for them. They're children who need love, attention, someone who truly cares. And I know what it's like to grow up without that." "How so?" "I grew up without a mother, sir. My mom died when I was 7. My dad was a good man, but he worked a lot and didn't know how to raise a little girl alone. I know the feeling of wondering if you matter enough for people to stay." Once again, Caleb was moved by her honesty. She wasn't just applying for a job. She was offering her life experience, her empathy, her genuine love for children. "Tony, I'd like to offer you the job. The salary is $4,000 a month, with all the benefits I mentioned, but I have one special condition." "What is it, Mr. Monroe?" "I want to learn to be a better father. I realize I don't know how to connect with my girls the way you managed in just 2 hours. Would you teach me?" Tony smiled tenderly. "Sir, being a dad isn't something you learn from a manual. It's something you learn day by day, with patience, presence, and love. And from what I saw today, you already have the most important thing, the desire to be better. The rest we can learn together." "So, do you accept the job?" "I do, Mr. Monroe, but I have a condition too." "What is it?" "I want you to be part of the girls' routine. I don't want to replace you as their father. I want to help you become the father they need, because in the end, no matter how many nannies they have, what they really want is their dad." Caleb's eyes misted. Tony had put her finger on the wound, gently but directly. His girls didn't need a substitute for their absent mother. They needed their present father to become truly present. "Deal. When can you start?" "I can start next Monday if that works." "Perfect." Caleb called the girls to say goodbye to Tony. They ran over and hugged her like a dear friend. "Auntie Tony, will you come back?" Hannah asked, eyes sad. "I will, sweetheart. Monday I'll be back and we'll play a lot more." "Promise you won't go away like the others?" Tony knelt and looked them in the eyes. "I promise to take care of you with great love, and to stay until the day you're too big to need a nanny, and even then, if you want, I can be your friend forever." "For real forever?" "For real forever." The girls gave a last hug and waved from the window as Tony walked down the sidewalk toward the nearest bus stop. That night at dinner, Hannah and Becca could talk about nothing else. About the fort, the interactive story, the snack they made, and how Tony said they had a special light. "Daddy, did you like Auntie Tony?" Becca asked. "I liked her a lot. Did you?" "We loved her," they chorused. "Daddy, is she really coming back Monday?" "She is. In fact, Tony will work here every day. She'll take care of you while Daddy works." The girls squealed and hugged. Caleb hadn't seen them that happy in a long time, and for the first time since Melissa had left, he felt they might finally heal the wound of maternal abandonment. Over the weekend before Tony's first day, Caleb did something he had never done. He spent all of Saturday and Sunday with his daughters. No phone, no laptop, no work distractions. He took them to the park, played on the playground with them, pushed the swings, went down the slide with them, took them out for ice cream, and talked for hours about their favorite flavors, their favorite colors, and the dreams they had for the future. It was a weekend of discoveries. Caleb learned that Hannah wanted to be a veterinarian because she loved animals. He learned that Becca dreamed of becoming a teacher so she could help other kids learn to read. He learned they were scared of thunder, that they loved pepperoni pizza, and that their favorite song was a tune from Frozen they knew by heart. But the most important discovery was that his daughters were incredible children, and he had lost 2 precious years of their lives by always being too busy to truly know them. On Monday morning, Tony arrived exactly at 7 a.m. She wore the same simple clothes from the interview, but brought a few surprises in her hand-stitched tote, 2 small sketchbooks she'd bought with her own money, and a special chocolate cake recipe from her grandmother. "Good morning, girls." "Auntie Tony!" Hannah and Becca shouted, running to hug her. Caleb watched with emotion. In just 5 days apart, his daughters had missed Tony as if she were family. "Tony, I need to leave for an 8 o'clock meeting, but I'll be back for lunch. How about we all eat together today?" "That would be wonderful, Mr. Monroe." Before leaving, Caleb kissed and hugged the girls, something he rarely did before. "Daddy loves you, princesses. See you at lunch." "We love you too, Daddy," they answered. During his meeting, Caleb found himself thinking about the girls again and again, wondering what they were doing, if they were having fun with Tony, if they were happy. When he came back at noon, he walked into a scene that left him speechless. Hannah and Becca were in the kitchen with Tony, all 3 wearing improvised aprons made from dish towels, dusted with flour from head to toe, laughing while they worked on what looked like a cake. "Daddy," Hannah cried, "we're making Auntie Tony's grandma's chocolate cake." "The secret recipe," Becca added proudly. Tony turned with a wide smile, also dusted with flour. "Mr. Monroe, the girls are great helpers. We're making a special chocolate cake for afternoon snack." "That's amazing. You did all this yourselves?" "Auntie Tony taught us how to crack eggs without leaving shells," said Hannah. "And how to stir the batter like a figure 8, Becca said, demonstrating with a wooden spoon. Caleb was moved, watching his daughters so engaged and joyful. They were learning, having fun, creating memories, exactly what had been missing from his own childhood. "How about Daddy helps too?" Tony suggested. "Can he, Daddy?" "Of course." Caleb took off his blazer, rolled up his sleeves, and joined the group in the kitchen. Tony showed him how to sift flour properly. The girls taught him the special figure 8 motion, and together the 4 of them finished the cake. While it baked, they ate lunch at the kitchen table instead of the formal dining room where Caleb usually ate alone. Tony had prepared a simple, delicious meal: rice, beans, grilled chicken, and salad. Home cooking made with care, seasoned with that secret ingredient she'd mentioned: love. Over lunch, the girls chatted excitedly about their morning. Tony had taught them to make friendship bracelets out of colorful twine. She'd retold the story of a brave American heroine, this time with Hannah and Becca acting out the parts. She'd shown them how to plant bean seeds in glass jars so they could watch them sprout. "Daddy, Auntie Tony says if we take good care of the little seeds, in a few days they'll turn into plants," Hannah said, eyes shining. "And she said taking care of plants is like taking care of people. You need water, light, and affection," Becca added. Caleb looked at Tony with admiration. In just one morning, she had turned simple tasks into opportunities for learning and fun. His girls were soaking up knowledge without even noticing, through play and hands-on activities. After lunch, while the cake cooled, Tony suggested they go out to the yard. "Let's enjoy this nice sunshine." In the garden, she taught the girls to blow soap bubbles with dish soap and water, then organized a treasure hunt where Hannah and Becca had to find objects of different colors and textures hidden around the lawn. Caleb joined everything, laughing, running, having fun in a way he hadn't since he was a child. "Mr. Monroe," Tony said, while the girls searched for a smooth stone she'd tucked behind the rose bush. You have wonderful daughters. They're bright, creative, loving. You should feel very proud. Tony, I need to confess something. Until this week, I barely knew my own girls. I didn't know Hannah wants to be a vet. I didn't know Becca dreams of being a teacher. I didn't know they were scared of thunder, that they love pepperoni pizza, that they know all the Frozen songs by heart. Tony nodded with understanding. Sir, it's never too late to get to know the people we love. What matters is that you want to know them now. That's what counts. How do you connect with them so easily? I really listen. I pay attention to what they say and feel. Kids can tell when someone is truly interested. They respond to genuine interest with genuine love. That afternoon, when it was time for snack, they cut the chocolate cake they had made together. It was delicious. But what touched Caleb most was the pride on his daughters' faces. They had created something with their own hands, and their father was appreciating it. Daddy, do you like our cake? Hannah asked. It's the best chocolate cake I've ever had. And do you know why? Why? Because you made it with love, and love is the secret ingredient that makes everything better. The girls beamed, and Tony smiled too, happy to see Caleb learning the language of fatherly love. In the days that followed, the household routine changed completely. Caleb started coming home earlier, around 5 every afternoon. Tony had suggested that he join the girls for snack time, bath time, and bedtime stories. Mr. Monroe, the girls are so happy when you arrive. What if you make your arrival a special moment? And so, the Daddy's Home ritual sure was born. Every day at 5, Hannah and Becca ran to the front window to watch his car pull into the driveway. When he walked in, they shouted, "Daddy's home!" and ran to hug him at the door. Caleb always knelt to receive their hugs, asked how their day had gone, and listened attentively to every detail they wanted to share. Tony watched with a smile, grateful to see a family reconnecting. She had turned her own pain into a tool to heal others. Each child she cared for received not just her professionalism, but the maternal love she could no longer give her own son. A week after Tony started, something happened that changed everything for good. It was a rainy Thursday, and Caleb had gone to a meeting expected to last all afternoon. Around 3 o'clock, he got a call from Hannah's school. "Mr. Monroe, Hannah isn't well. She has a high fever and vomited. Could you come pick her up?" Caleb was in the middle of an important negotiation for a $50 million contract, but he didn't hesitate for a second. "I'm on my way." He apologized to the clients, cancelled the meeting, and rushed to the school. He found Hannah pale and feverish, clinging to her teacher. His heart squeezed at the sight of his little girl sick. "Come here, princess. Daddy's here." On the drive home, Hannah whispered, "Daddy, I want Auntie Tony." When they arrived, Tony was waiting at the door, worried. She had prepared warm chamomile tea and a cool compress for Hannah's forehead. Without asking anything, she scooped the child into her arms and carried her to bed. "My love, you're feeling yucky? Come here. Auntie will take care of you." Caleb watched how Tony tended to Hannah with a mother's tenderness. She fed her the tea a spoonful at a time, laid the cool compress on her forehead, and hummed a lullaby until the little girl fell asleep. "Tony, thank you." "You don't have to thank me, sir." When a child is sick, she needs extra affection. This isn't an obligation, it's love. That night, Hannah had a high fever and nightmares. Caleb and Tony took turns caring for her. Tony taught Caleb how to give a lukewarm bath to bring the fever down, how to make cold compresses, how to offer liquids in small sips. More importantly, she showed him how to provide emotional comfort to a sick child. "Mr. Monroe, when kids are sick, they're more sensitive, needier. That's normal. What they need is to feel someone is caring for them with love." Around 2 in the morning, Hannah woke up crying for her mother. It always happened when she was ill, the instinctive longing for a mother's arms in a moment of weakness. "I want my mum," she sobbed. "Where's my mum?" Caleb's heart broke. He didn't know how to answer, how to console a child begging for someone who had abandoned her. But Tony came to the bedside and held Hannah's tiny hand. "Sweetheart, I know you want your mom. It's normal to want mommy when you don't feel well, but look how many people are here loving you. Daddy cancelled an important meeting to pick you up. Becca made a special drawing to help you feel better, and Auntie Tony is right here, staying with you until you're well." Hannah stopped crying and looked at her father. "Daddy, you cancelled a meeting because of me?" "Of course, Princess. Nothing in the world is more important than you and Becca. Not even money." "Not even money. Daddy's learned money's worthless if the people we love aren't okay." Hannah gave a weak smile and reached for him. Caleb gathered her in his arms, and for the first time since she was a baby, held his sick daughter through the night, softly singing the lullabies he remembered from his own childhood, offering the fatherly comfort she needed. Tony watched with tears in her eyes. She was witnessing a man becoming a true father, and two children receiving the presents they'd been craving. Hannah recovered in 2 days, but something had changed forever. She and Becca began to see Tony not just as a nanny, but as a maternal figure, and Caleb began to see her not as an employee, but as part of the family. Then came the scene that changed everything for good. It was an ordinary Tuesday, 4 weeks after Tony started. Caleb had gone to a meeting expected to end at 4, but it wrapped up early, and he decided to surprise the girls by coming home at 3. When he parked and stepped in through the kitchen, he heard laughter from the dining room. He walked quietly toward the sound and stopped in the doorway to a sight that made him cry. Hannah and Becca sat at the table, eating pasta with tomato sauce. But it wasn't the food that moved him. It was the way they were eating. They were laughing, chatting animatedly, telling each other stories. Hannah had sauce on her face and didn't care. Becca was gesturing excitedly as she talked about something she'd learned at school. And Tony was right there with them, not as a supervising employee, but as a mother sharing a moment of family intimacy. She laughed at their jokes, asked questions about what they brought up, and took part in the conversation with genuine interest. "Auntie Tony," Hannah said, "can we have this pasta all the time?" "Of course, my love. It's a simple recipe, but made with a lot of love." "Why does food made with love taste better?" Becca asked. "Because when we cook, thinking about making someone happy, we add a special seasoning you can't buy at the store. Care, attention, the desire to please. And that makes all the difference." "Like when Mom used to cook?" Hannah asked softly. Caleb held his breath. Hannah rarely talked about her mother, and when she did, it usually brought sadness. But this time there was a calm curiosity in her voice, not the usual pain. "Did your mom cook for you sometimes?" Tony asked gently. "Sometimes," Becca said, "but she got mad when we made a mess. And she didn't like when we wanted to help." "Some people think cooking is an obligation, not a joy," Tony explained. "For me, cooking for people I love is a way to show love. And when you help me, it's even more special because we're creating memories together." "What kind of memories?" Hannah asked. "Memories of happy moments. When you grow up, you'll remember this afternoon, eating pasta, talking, and laughing together. And it'll warm your hearts even when you're far away." Tears ran down Caleb's face. Tony was giving his daughters exactly what they needed. Positive memories, moments of genuine love they would carry forever. And what moved him most was seeing they were truly happy. Not a forced or artificial happiness, but the pure joy of children who felt loved, safe, and important. Hannah laughed at something Becca said and splattered sauce on her shirt. Instead of getting upset, she laughed even harder. "Look, Auntie Tony, I turned into a mess." Not a mess. You turned into an artist. Look at the pretty design the source made on your shirt. Tony answered, laughing too. Can I make more art? Hannah asked, playful. You can, but only on the shirt, not on the table, Tony said, joining the joke. The three of them burst into laughter, creating a precious memory of that Tuesday afternoon they would never forget. In that moment, Caleb fully understood what he'd been missing all those years. It wasn't the expensive toys, designer clothes, or luxury trips his daughters wanted. It was this: simple human connection, shared laughter, real conversations, love expressed through everyday gestures. Tony had turned a simple pasta dish into a banquet of affection. She had taken ingredients that cost less than $10 and created something worth more than all Caleb's millions: the happiness of his daughters. He stood in the doorway a few more minutes, absorbing the scene, committing every detail to memory. Then he wiped his tears discreetly and walked in with a smile. Hey, princesses! You came home early, Daddy, the girls shouted, racing to hug him. We're eating Auntie Tony's special pasta, and it smells amazing. Can I try some? You can. Auntie Tony made plenty, Hannah said, tugging him by the hand. Caleb sat at the table, something he rarely did, as he usually ate in his office while working or in the formal dining room after the girls had already eaten. But that day he wanted to be part of the moment. Tony served him a plate, and when he tasted the pasta, he understood why the girls were so happy. It wasn't just the food, though it was truly delicious. It was the context, the love with which it was prepared, the relaxed, welcoming atmosphere Tony had created. Tony, this is amazing. What's the secret? The secret is, I cook thinking about the people who will eat. When I make food for Hannah and Becca, I'm thinking about how to make them happy, how to nourish not just their bodies but their hearts. During snack, the girls told their dad about the day. Tony had taught them origami. They'd planted little basil seedlings in tiny pots. They'd read a book about dinosaurs and then played paleontologists in the backyard. Daddy, did you know some dinosaurs ate only plants? Becca asked. I didn't. Tell me more. Becca began to explain everything she'd learned, with Hannah chiming in on the parts she found most interesting. Caleb listened, fascinated, not just by their knowledge, but by the enthusiasm with which they shared it. Tony had turned education into fun, learning into play. His daughters were absorbing knowledge naturally and joyfully, associating learning with happy moments. After snack, the girls went to play in the yard, and Caleb stayed in the kitchen, helping Tony wash the dishes. Tony, I need to thank you. For what, Mr. Monroe? For giving my girls their joy back. I hadn't seen them this happy in a long time, Tony smiled. Sir, the joy was already inside them. I just created the environment for it to appear. Children are naturally joyful when they feel safe and loved. Yes, but you made it happen. You knew how to reach them. I knew because I was once a child who needed to feel important to someone. When my mum died, I felt so lost, so alone. Then a teacher, Mrs. Eunice, treated me with special kindness. She taught me extra things, gave me attention, made me feel I had value. She saved me back then. And now you're being my daughter's Mrs. Eunice. I hope I'm giving them a little of what she gave me, the certainty that they are special and worthy of love. That night at dinner, Caleb made an important announcement. Girls, Daddy decided something. Starting tomorrow, I'll get home every day at 4 o'clock to have snack with you. Really, Daddy? Hannah asked, eyes shining. Really. And on weekends, we'll do special things together. Go to the park, the zoo, the beach, and Tony will come with us, if she wants. I'd love to, Tony said, moved. Daddy, won't you work so much anymore? Becca asked. I'll work enough to support our family, but never so much that I miss the important moments with you." The girls jumped up and ran to hug him. Caleb held them tight, promising himself he'd never again let work matter more than his daughters. And so, a new phase began for the Monroe family. Caleb completely reorganized his work hours, delegated more to his managers, learned to say no to unnecessary meetings, and discovered he could be just as productive in 8 focused hours as he had been in 16. With Tony, he learned the language of fatherly love. She taught him to notice the small details that make a difference in a child's life. How Hannah liked him to brush her hair before bed. How Becca loved when he read stories using different voices for each character. How both girls felt special when he asked specific questions about their day, showing genuine interest in their little adventures. A month after that pasta afternoon, Caleb realized that not only had his daughters changed, he had become a better person, more patient, more present, more connected to his own feelings. For the first time in his adult life, he knew what genuine happiness felt like. It wasn't in the million-dollar contracts, the imported cars, or the luxurious home. Happiness was Hannah's smile when he arrived. It was Becca running to show him a drawing she'd made. It was in good-night hugs and breakfast conversations, in the laughter they shared on weekends. Tony had taught him the most valuable lesson of his life, that being truly rich has nothing to do with what you own, and everything to do with the quality of the relationships you build. That real success isn't measured by bank numbers, but by your ability to make the people you love feel loved. 3 months after Tony started working, something happened no one expected. It was a Saturday morning, and the family was having breakfast together in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Caleb answered and found an elegant woman at the door. Blonde hair, expensive clothes, flashy jewelry. It was Melissa. "Hi, Caleb. Can I come in?" He was stunned. After 2.5 years of total absence, no calls, no letters, no sign of life, Melissa stood there as if she'd left yesterday. "Melissa, what are you doing here?" "I came to see my daughters." "I'm their mother. I have that right." Caleb felt anger, indignation, disbelief. Before he could answer, Hannah and Becca appeared in the kitchen doorway. When they saw their mother, they froze. "Mum," Hannah whispered. Melissa smiled and crouched with open arms. "Hi, my princesses." Mommy's back. But something unexpected happened. Hannah and Becca didn't run into her arms. They stood still, clinging to each other, looking at their mother with a mix of confusion and fear. "Mum, where were you?" Becca asked, her voice trembling. "Mommy had to travel for work, sweetie, but I'm back now to stay with you." "Did you leave because we did something wrong?" Hannah asked, tears in her eyes. The question hit Melissa like a slap. She realized her daughters had grown up in her absence. They weren't the defenseless little girls she'd left behind. Tony, who'd heard the conversation from the kitchen, stepped in quietly and stood behind the girls, offering emotional support just by being there. "Girls," Melissa said, trying to keep her composure, "who is this woman?" "She's Auntie Tony," Hannah answered, moving closer to Tony and taking her hand. "She takes care of us." "She's almost like our mum," Becca said, also moving to stand by Tony. A wave of jealousy washed over Melissa. She had expected to find her daughters still desperate for her return, as if all it would take was showing up and apologizing. Instead, she found 2 girls who had formed new bonds, who had found maternal love in someone else. "Caleb, I need to talk to you alone," Melissa said in the imperious tone he knew too well. "Tony, could you stay with the girls, please?" Caleb asked. "Of course, Mr. Monroe." Tony took Hannah and Becca to the backyard to play, though they were clearly worried about what was happening. In the living room, Melissa got straight to the point. "Caleb, I made a mistake. I want to come back. I want my family back." "Melissa, you abandoned your daughters. You vanished from their lives. I was confused, going through a crisis. But now I understand what really matters. I want to be a real mother, and things with Joshua are over. He was a fantasy, an escape. My place is here with my girls." Caleb looked at her with a mix of disbelief and anger. "You think you can just show up after 2.5 years as if nothing happened? The girls suffered terribly because of your absence. They did therapy, had nightmares, asked themselves 1,000 times if they'd done something wrong to make you leave. I know I hurt them, Caleb. But I'm their mother. I can make it up to them. I can win back their love. You lost their love the day you chose to abandon them. What they feel now is fear. Didn't you see their reaction when they saw you? They didn't run to you. They hid behind a woman they've known 3 months, someone who's been here every single day." Melissa began to cry. "Caleb, I admit I made terrible mistakes. I can't change the past. I can only try to build a different future. You had 2.5 years to build a different future. Where were you when Hannah had pneumonia last year? Where were you when Becca broke her arm at the park? Where were you when they asked every night when Mommy was coming back?" The words were harsh, but true. Melissa realized she had lost not only the time she'd been gone, but also her daughter's trust and love. "What do you want me to do, Caleb? Give up forever? I want you to understand that being a mother isn't a right you exercise when it's convenient. It's a responsibility you live every day. If you really want a relationship with Hannah and Becca, you'll have to start from zero, slowly respecting their pace. And that woman, the nanny? Tony isn't just a nanny. She's someone who genuinely loves my daughters, who was there when they needed it most, who helped heal the wound you left." Melissa felt another stab of jealousy. "Are you in love with her?" The question caught Caleb off guard. He'd never allowed himself to think of Tony romantically. She was his daughter's nanny, an employee he respected and admired deeply. But being honest with himself, he realized his feelings had grown beyond professional admiration. He missed her on weekends. He felt happy when she arrived in the morning. He loved talking with her during family snack time. He felt complete when the 4 of them were together, as if they had finally found the family balance he'd always sought. But was it love? And was it appropriate to feel that for someone who worked for him and cared for his children? "Melissa, my feelings for Tony aren't your concern. What matters here is Hannah and Becca. I'm their mother. I have legal rights, and I'm their father. My priority is to protect them from more pain. If you truly want to be part of their lives again, you'll have to prove you've changed, not with words, but with actions, over a long period." Melissa realized it wouldn't be easy to win them back. They were no longer the toddlers she'd left behind. They were smart girls who had learned to live without her, who had formed new bonds, who had developed a mature understanding of abandonment and responsibility. "What do you suggest?" she asked, defeated. "I suggest you hire a lawyer to regularize visitation, get therapy to understand why you abandoned your kids, build a stable life, and demonstrate over months that you've really changed. Only then can we talk about gradually increasing your presence in their lives. And if they don't want to see me, then you'll have to accept the consequences of your choices, Melissa. Children aren't objects that sit on a shelf waiting for their parents to return when it's convenient. They move on, form new bonds, build new realities." Melissa left that Saturday, defeated and humiliated. She had imagined her daughters would be desperate for her return, that showing up and apologizing would reset everything. Instead, she found 2 girls who had learned to be happy without her, who had found maternal love in another woman. In the following weeks, Hannah and Becca asked many questions about their mother's visit. With help from the child psychologist, Tony and Caleb guided them through the confusing feelings Melissa's reappearance had triggered. "Daddy, is Mom going to try to take us away?" Becca asked one night before the bedtime story. No, sweetheart. You'll keep living here with me and Auntie Tony. Maybe if Mom proves she's changed, you could visit her sometimes, but only if you want to, and always with a trusted adult present. I don't want to leave here, Hannah said. I like our life. Me too, Becca said. We're happy here. Caleb smiled, moved. His daughters chose to stay, not out of obligation or lack of options, but because they truly felt loved and safe at home. A month after Melissa's visit, Caleb made a decision that surprised even him. It was a Friday night. He was in the kitchen helping Tony with dinner while the girls watched cartoons in the living room. Tony, he said, drying a plate, can I ask you something personal? Of course, Mr. Monroe. Have you ever thought of having your own family, getting married, having children? Tony stopped stirring the sauce and went quiet for a moment. After I lost my son, I thought I could never love a child the same way again. But Hannah and Becca, they healed a wound in my heart I thought would never close. As for a partner, a husband, I was married once, very young. It didn't work out. Since then, I've never met someone who was worth it, someone who truly knew me, understood my story, accepted my past. Caleb took a breath and gathered his courage. Tony, I need to tell you something. Over these months, you haven't just been my daughter's nanny. You've become the most important person in our family. Tony looked at him, surprised. Mr. Monroe, let me finish, please. You turned this house into a home. You turned my girls into happy children. You made me a better father and a better man. Tears rolled down Tony's face. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything now. I just want you to know you're much more than an employee to us. You're family. And if one day you'd like to officially become part of this family, I would be honored. Tony set the spoon in the sink and turned to face him. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to think about the possibility. No pressure, no need to answer now. But I want you to know that I love you, Tony. Not just for what you've done for my daughters, but for who you are, for your kindness, your strength, your ability to turn pain into love. Tony was crying openly now. I fell in love with you too, Mr. Monroe. I was afraid to admit it. We're not from different worlds, Tony. We're from the same one. The world of people who believe love matters more than money. That family is more valuable than any fortune. At that moment, Hannah and Becca ran into the kitchen. Auntie Tony, why are you crying? Hannah asked, worried. I'm crying happy tears, sweetheart, Tony said, kneeling to hug them. And Daddy, why are you crying? Becca asked. Caleb smiled, wiping his face. Because Daddy wants to ask you a very important question. What question? How would you feel if Auntie Tony officially became part of our family, if she married Daddy and became your new mom? The girls looked at each other for a second, processing. Then they squealed with joy and threw themselves into Tony's and Caleb's arms. Really? Auntie Tony will be our mom forever? Hannah asked. If she wants to, and if you want to, Caleb said. We do. We want it so much, they said together. Tony looked at the two children who had become the daughters of her heart, then at the man who had become the love of her life, and knew she had found her place in the world. I want that too, she whispered. I want very much to be part of this family. 6 months later, in a simple but moving ceremony in the garden of the Greenwich home, Caleb Monroe and Tony Carter were married. Hannah was the flower girl, scattering rose petals along the path. Becca was the ring bearer, carrying the bands on a little velvet cushion. Tony wore a simple, elegant dress she had chosen herself that cost less than $500, yet she was radiant, more beautiful than any magazine model, because she wore the most important dress of all, genuine happiness. Caleb, in a dark suit, waited beneath the pergola, with tears in his eyes, watching the woman he loved walk toward him, accompanied by the daughters they had chosen to raise together. The officiant, who knew the family's story, made a point of including Hannah and Becca in the ritual. "Tony, do you accept not only Caleb as your husband, but also Hannah and Becca as your daughters?" "I do, with all my heart." "And you, Hannah and Becca, do you accept Tony not only as your father's wife, but as your new mom?" "We do," the girls shouted, making the guests laugh through their tears. When Caleb and Tony kissed to seal the union, Hannah and Becca ran to embrace them, and the four held each other, finally forming the complete family they had always dreamed of. During the reception, simple but full of love, Caleb gave a speech that moved everyone. "For many years I believed success was measured by money in the bank, the properties I owned, the contracts I signed. I learned I was completely wrong. Success is measured by the quality of the relationships we build, and by our ability to make the people we love feel loved." He looked at Tony, glowing beside him. "Tony taught me that true wealth is having a united family, coming home every day and being welcomed with genuine joy, sharing a simple pasta dinner made with love. She taught me the greatest luxury is having someone who loves you for who you are, not for what you have." He looked at Hannah and Becca, grinning ear to ear in their party dresses. "And my daughters taught me that being a father isn't about expensive gifts or luxurious experiences. It's about being present in big moments and small ones too, knowing their fears, their dreams, their favorite foods, being the person they run to when they're happy and the person they trust when they're sad. Today isn't just my wedding day," he continued. "It's the day our family becomes official. Tony isn't just marrying me, she's adopting Hannah and Becca as her daughters, and they, who have called her Mom in their hearts for months, can now call her Mom officially." The guests applauded, emotional. Tony cried with happiness, hugging the girls who had become the daughters she never thought she'd have again. 2 years after the wedding, the Monroe Carter family's life was transformed. Caleb had learned to balance work and family in a healthy way. He remained a successful businessman, but now defined success differently. Success was getting home at 5 and finding his family happy. It was attending school meetings. It was taking family trips with the phone turned off. It was cooking with Tony on weekends, teaching Hannah and Becca recipes they would carry into adulthood. Tony had earned her degree in education, fulfilling a long-held dream. She continued caring for Hannah and Becca, but now as their mother, not their nanny, and in her spare time, she tutored underprivileged children in the community, using her knowledge and love to transform other lives. Hannah, now 8, still dreamed of becoming a veterinarian and tended a butterfly garden she and Tony had created in the backyard. Becca, now 10, discovered a talent for writing and spun fantastic stories she read to the family at dinner. The Greenwich house was still luxurious, but now it was warm too. The walls were filled with family photos, the girls' drawings, and plants they grew together. The kitchen table, where Caleb had once eaten alone, was now the center of daily family meals, where they talked about their days, made weekend plans, and shared joys and worries. And Melissa? She tried for a few months to establish a visitation routine, but after several attempts, Hannah and Becca decided they didn't want to continue. They had found in Tony the maternal love they needed and didn't miss the biological mother who had abandoned them. Realizing she had definitively lost her daughter's love, Melissa gave up and vanished from their lives again. One December night, 2.5 years after Tony first came to the house, the family was in the living room watching a movie. Hannah fell asleep in Tony's lap, Becca leaned against her dad. The scene was simple and beautiful. "Caleb," Tony whispered so as not to wake Hannah, "do you remember when you asked me if money could buy everything?" "I remember. And I told you there are things money will never buy. Money can't buy a child's genuine laughter. It can't buy trust that takes years to build. It can't buy the happiness of coming home and knowing you're loved for who you are, not for what you have. It can't buy the peace of mind that comes from knowing your family is well and united." Caleb looked around the room, his daughter sleeping peacefully, his radiant wife, and knew he was the richest man in the world, not for the millions in the bank, but for the treasure he carried in his heart. "Tony, thank you for teaching me what really matters. Thank you for giving me a second chance to be a mother and to be truly loved." That night, as they carried the girls to their rooms and tucked them in, Caleb and Tony talked about the future. They wanted to have another child together. They wanted to travel the world as a family. They wanted to create a foundation to help children without families. They wanted to grow old side by side, watching Hannah and Becca become fulfilled, happy women. But for now, they were savoring each moment of the present, because they had learned happiness isn't in what you plan for the future. It's in what you live today. It's in a Tuesday pasta dinner made with love, in good-night hugs, in the laughter shared at breakfast, in the certainty that you have people who love you unconditionally. And when Hannah and Becca grew up, Hannah becoming a veterinarian and Becca a writer, they always remembered that Tuesday afternoon when their dad came home early and found them eating pasta with the woman who became their mother at heart. They remembered it as the most important moment of their childhoods, because it was when they realized they finally had a real family. Years later, when they told their own children the story, they always said how Grandpa Caleb had been a very rich man who discovered he knew nothing about true wealth until he met Grandma Tony, who taught him that the greatest treasure in the world isn't locked in a vault, but carried in the heart. And so, a simple pasta made with love transformed the lives of 4 people forever, proving that the biggest changes sometimes begin with the simplest gestures, and that genuine love can heal any wound and transform any life. This is a story about discovering that being a father is far more than providing financially. It's about learning that true wealth isn't measured by numbers in a bank. It's about a woman who turned her greatest loss into her greatest capacity to love. It's about 2 children who found the home they always deserved. And it's about a family formed not by blood, but by genuine love, true presence, and unconditional care. Because in the end, money can buy many things, but it will never buy what truly matters. A family united by love, where every person knows they are valued, loved, and important. And that kind of wealth lasts forever. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more moving stories that show love always wins, kindness is always rewarded, and simple people often carry humanity's greatest treasures. Thank you for listening. It's Mr. Hope again. Subscribe to this channel for amazing stories.